Hey, welcome back. We are going to be continuing our Blender submarine here. So as you can see in the last lesson, what we did is smoothed all of our objects except for the rudder in the back. We smoothed the periscope, we smoothed the propeller, we smoothed the body, and we also added color to it. Don't worry if you don't see any color on your objects after opening it up. All that means is that you aren't in the rendered view, and that's again not a huge deal. But if you'd like to go to the keyboard shortcuts here, you're ever freaking out, the rendered view is the actual view from the video. So if you press Z and 8, you can go to the rendered view, but we're going to go out of there anyways. But I'll just show you. If I press Z and 8, that's my rendered view. So I've actually colored my objects here, okay? I'm just going to go back to my solid view, which is Z and 6, and here we go. Okay. So what I'd like to do in this lesson is start actually animating the process. We eventually want this submarine to have moving parts. We like the periscope to rotate, the propeller to rotate, the rudder to go back and forth, and the entire submarine to move as well. So one thing we're going to need to do in order to do that is to do what's called parenting. Now what will happen, eventually we want the submarine to move. So if I had my submarine moving currently, so if I grab my submarine object and I move it, you can see it moves, but nothing else moves along with it because these are separate objects. So in order to animate this process, you'd have to move the submarine and then also move the periscope and the rudder and the propeller all separately, and it would be virtually impossible to get the locations perfect. So what we're going to do here is actually make the body of the submarine what is called the parent of the other objects. Okay, so these are kind of, in a roundabout way, going to be the children. The periscope, the rudder, and the propeller will be the children. And as we all know, the children generally follow the parent. So that's called parenting the object. I'm just going to show you how to do that really quickly here. It even shows you on the document, in case you're missing it, it talks about parenting objects right here in this dark blue box. So we're going to go about that process. But the process is, I'm in object mode right now. I don't think it'll work in edit mode, so make sure you're in object mode. If you're not, you can press tab and just make sure that it says object mode here. You're going to select all the children first. So click on the periscope, hold the shift button on your keyboard because you want to select multiple objects. So you can see I've just selected the rudder and the propeller, so all the children are selected, and you need to select the parent last. Okay, and as you can see, the children have a dark orange outline around them, and the parent, the body of the submarine, has a light orange outline around it. So the next thing we're going to do is press Control P. It'll bring up a menu. Control P is going to bring up the parent menu. So Control P, and we are going to set the parent to the object. So what that ensures is later on, and this is actually going to be in the next video, this ensures that later on when I go to move any of the objects, when I move the body, so not these objects, but when I grab the body here, when I grab the body, everything will move with it because it is the parent of those other objects. Okay? All right, so that's one of the things we want to do. And the last thing I want to do is show you how the animating process starts. Okay? So the first thing you need to be aware of is some of the animating procedures and just some of the interface items here. So on the bottom, you can see the numbers 0 all the way through 250. This is how many frames, and I've got this blue line. I can scrub with this blue line. This is how many frames my video has right now. It's got 250 frames. Okay. In general, videos have about 24 frames per second or 30 frames per second. So those are 30 pictures or 24 pictures every second, and that's how we get a moving image. Okay, in this particular case, my frame rate is 24 frames per second. We're going to be making approximately, doesn't have to be precise, but approximately a 4-second video. So if I've got 24 frames for every second, I'm going to make the end, so this is where you want to start, is make the end of your video only 100 frames. So if you click on end right here and type the number 100, you'll see the line shortens, the shaded part of the line shortens to 100. So I've got a 100 frame video, and if there's 24 frames per second in my video, that's about 4 seconds, a tiny bit over, because 4 times 24 is 96. Okay, another thing you may want to do is if you toggle right above this line here, you can view your video strip a little bit more. Okay, and also there's a quick shortcut for playing your video, which is the space bar. So if you press the space bar, you can see that this blue scrubs, and it'll just go over and over and over and over. If you press the space bar again, it will pause it. So it shows you exactly what frame you're on. Now the reason you're not seeing any motion at the moment is because I I haven't actually made my video yet at all. I haven't done anything. Okay. So the goal of the rest of this video is to show you how to animate the periscope. We're going to make the periscope rotate 5 times. Now, in the past, in history, what you used to have to do is set the rotation every single frame. So you'd have to do, I'll just kind of give you the idea here. You would have to, for example, go to frame 1, say that's the rotation that I want. Then you'd have to go to frame 2, and then maybe set the, see if I can find it here. Set the rotation to be a little bit more. See, if you watch the, set the periscope. If you watch the periscope, you could set it to be, so see it's rotating a little bit. You can say that's what I want it to be on the next frame. Then you have to go to frame 3, and then say, okay, I want it to be that particular rotation on frame 3, then frame 4, just a little bit more rotation. We don't want to have to do that. We don't have to set every single frame just a little bit more of a rotation. And what we're going to do now, and this is just where animating has got to at this point, is what's called keyframing. What we can do is we can set the rotation that we want at the first frame, and then the rotation that we want it to finish at the last frame, and the program, Blender, will fill in all the blanks. So it'll basically say, okay, if you want to start at no rotation and you'd like to finish at 5 rotations, in between those 2 points, we will interpolate between them and have that rotation set so it finishes at 5 rotations at the end. Okay, so that's the idea of keyframing. Now to perform keyframing, there is, you can see it right here, it gives you the keyframing or animating process. So the order that you go in is pretty critical here. So you're going to want to really pay attention. This is where students in the past have gone a little bit sideways. So the order of animating is, first of all, so let's go to the periscope. So first of all, make sure you selected the periscope and not the body or the rudder or the propeller. Go to the periscope. Okay. And we're going to say that on frame 1, so if you go to the bottom and you go to frame 1, you can also use the arrow keys on your keyboard if you can't select it perfectly. Your left and right, up and down, so left arrow keys, you can go to frame 1. And what we want to do is for the Blender program to know that at frame 1, we'd like this thing to just begin its rotation, so to start at 0. Okay, so at this particular point, what we're going to do, so we went to frame 1, so the order is first of all select the frame that you'd like to animate in. Okay, the next thing I'd like you to do is click on the orange tab here. So this context object, we know, and I can just show you a whole bunch of things actually before we do the rest. If you play around with the X or Y or Z rotation, you can see what happens. So you can see if I rotate it in the X axis, I'm just touching it and scrubbing my mouse, it's going to rotate it the wrong way. So I'm just going to type in a 0 here again. And if I rotate the periscope in the Y axis, whoops, you can see it's going to go kind of weird as well. Okay, so what we're going to find out is in this particular case, the rotation that we like, you can see it here, is going to be rotation in the Z axis. Okay, so we want to rotate this 5 times on the Z axis. So the first thing we've done is hopefully you're on frame 1. Next thing you want to do is make sure that your rotation, or what you'd want to animate, is at the right setting. So we do want this to start at 0 degrees in the Z axis. So that's already done. Okay, the third thing you want to do is when you're in the screen here, press the letter I. Okay, I is to insert a keyframe. So if you press I, you get this menu. And we, in this case, we only want to deal with rotating the periscope. We're not going to do any of these other ones. I only know what 3 of these do. So we are just going to do a rotation type of keyframing. So as soon as you click on that, what you're going to see is this goes yellow. So it's memorized that on frame 1, what you'd like is for this to be at 0 degrees. Okay, and you can see there's a little diamond in the bottom corner. So that's called a keyframe. Now what we want to do is go to the last frame, frame 100. Okay, so the process is go to the frame you'd like to animate. The second step, so you can see this is no longer yellow, it's green. The second step is set the rotation that you'd like it, or what you'd like it to be at that point. So at that point, 5 rotations. We know 360 degrees is 1 rotation, so if we multiply that by 5, it's 1800 degrees. Okay, and the last thing we want to do is to memorize that as the keyframe. So go to the frame, set the rotation. Now we're going to press the letter I and go to rotation, and you can see they're all yellow. So we've added that keyframe and we've got that little diamond there. Okay, so what we've done is we've memorized now on frame 1 it's at 0 degrees. At frame 100 it's at 1800 degrees. So you can see now if I play my video, or if I scrub this even, you can see there's rotation. Or if I press the space bar, I now have set it so that at the beginning it's at 0 and it completes 5 full rotations by the 100 frame point. So that's a step of animating. I'm now just going to go ahead and save this. And in the next video, we are going to be animating the propeller, the rudder, and perhaps the body as well. And then eventually we'll get into rendering this actual video. So we're getting closer to finishing here. So go ahead and save this in a good place. Okay. Name it something meaningful, and we are done.